Case International's early riser Cyclo Air planters offer a simple system unsurpassed for total planting efficiency. Seed from a pressurized seed hopper enters a rotating perforated drum. Air pressure in the drum holds individual seeds in the seed pockets. A brush removes excess seed to assure only one per pocket. As the drum rotates to a 9 o'clock position, a release wheel blocks escaping air. This causes the seed in the pockets to drop into the manifold. The manifold routes the seed through a seed tube to the corresponding row unit on a cushion of air. The seeds are deposited into the trench created by the row unit. During planting, the staggered disc opener on each row unit opens the narrowest seed trench possible. A furrow firming point follows to ensure a firm, clean seed trench. The seed is then deposited. Once the seed has been deposited, covering discs close the seed trench with moist soil. Finally, the press wheel gently compacts the soil over the seed, assuring proper soil-to-seed contact. The entire system has been carefully designed for planting accuracy, efficiency, and simplicity of operation. However, a certain amount of fine-tuning and adjustment is required to keep the system operating at its peak level. This program will help you understand many of those adjustments quickly and easily. We have organized this program into 4 segments. You may choose to view the entire program, or you can select whatever part of the program best serves your immediate service needs. This program is intended as a supplement to individual operators' manuals for the early riser planter. For detailed information on any specific model or for service information on topics not covered in this presentation, refer to the appropriate operator's manual. The following are general pre-planting checks and maintenance procedures to be performed on the Cyclo seed drum system. For the Cyclo Air system to function properly, the drum holes, release wheels, and seed delivery manifold openings must line up exactly, or you will not get proper seed delivery. Start by making sure the firewall is flat. This will ensure a proper seal between the drum and the firewall. Check the firewall with a straight edge. If it's bowed, loosen the retaining bolts, which should allow the firewall to flatten, then recheck it. If this didn't work, check the mounting supports behind the firewall to make sure they aren't bent. If the firewall is still bowed, you will have to replace it. Now we're going to install the swing gauge. The swing gauge simulates the inner dimensions of the seed drum. Always check the swing gauge for squareness before installing it. Install the swing gauge on the drum drive shaft. Do not over-tighten the gauge, or you may not get accurate measurements. First, check the squareness of the drum drive shaft to the firewall. Start with a side-to-side squareness check first. Using a feeler gauge, measure the distance between the end of the swing gauge and firewall at the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock positions. These 2 measurements must be within 30 thousandths of an inch of each other. If adjustment is needed, loosen the bolts on the gearbox mounting support. Then move the support assembly side to side to obtain the 30 thousandths dimension. It may be necessary to use shims between the gearbox and the support assembly rather than replace the support to obtain the 30 thousandths. Next, check the top to bottom squareness of the drive shaft. Measure the distance between the end of the swing gauge and the firewall at the 12 and 6 o'clock positions. These 2 measurements must be within 60 thousandths of an inch of each other. To make this adjustment, loosen the gearbox mounting bolts. Then loosen the jam nuts on the square-headed adjusting screw and move the screw up or down as necessary. The maximum difference between the side-to-side and top-to-bottom measurements must not exceed 90 thousandths of an inch. Once you are sure the shaft is square to the firewall, remove the swing gauge and reinstall it on the next pin of the end plate. Then recheck your measurements. If the correct squaring tolerances cannot be obtained with the swing gauge in this position, the end plate may be damaged. If it is, replace it and repeat the drive shaft squaring process. Another cause of erratic seed delivery is that the seed drum is out of round. Check it as follows. Remove the drive chain, Raise the seed release wheels. Install a dial indicator between the first and second seed row holes and locate the low point on the drum. Then take 3 additional readings at 90-degree intervals around the drum. The maximum allowable runout between measurements is 0.2 of an inch. Points of maximum runout will usually occur across from each other. If the drum is out of round, remove it and put it on cardboard to prevent damage to the seed pockets. Minimum runout should be parallel to the ground. Apply firm pressure on the sides of the drum, pressing with enough force to bend the drum slightly. Reinstall the seed drum and remeasure the runout. You may have to repeat this process until the correct tolerance is obtained. Loss of air pressure within the Cyclo drum system may mean that the drum seal is damaged. Check the condition of the drum seal. If it is damaged or flat, replace it as follows. Take off the seal retaining ring and remove the seal from the bead. Clean all dried adhesive from the drum. Place the new seal evenly on the drum bead and remove the wrinkles by using one hand to hold the drum firmly while working around the drum seal with the other hand. Once the seal is evenly seated, apply a 2-inch strip of adhesive in 4 places, 90 degrees apart. Reinstall the retaining ring and be careful not to catch the lip of the seal under it. Once the seal is installed, take a good look at the lip. It has to point at a 50-degree angle away from perpendicular to the sides of the drum. Allow the adhesive to dry overnight. Our next step will be to align the holes in the drum with the manifold opening. It is important to do this with the drum you will be using for planting. Pressurize the system at 10 to 13 ounces per square inch or pull out on the drum by hand. Measure the distance from the firewall to the first set of holes. The required distance is 2 5/8 to 2 11/16 inches. You may have to add or remove shim washers behind the drum drive end plate to achieve this tolerance. We have squared the drive shaft and drum to the firewall and are now ready to line up the drum with the manifold and seed release wheels. Start by removing the drum and adjusting the height of the seed manifold. Hold a ruler flat against the firewall and make a mark on the firewall 8 5/8 inches directly below the bottom edge of the release wheel bracket. Hold a combination square flat against the firewall, aligning the bottom edge of the square with the mark you made on the firewall. Slide the manifold up or down on its mounting bolts until the top edge of the manifold just touches the bottom edge of the square. Next, reinstall the swing gauge. Place the swing gauge at approximately 9 o'clock. Use a feeler gauge to check the clearance between the arm and the manifold at the point shown. The gap must be 60 thousandths of an inch. Check the gap at both the top and bottom of the manifold throat area. To adjust, loosen the bolt securing the manifold to the firewall. Then slide the manifold to adjust the gap to the 60 thousandths tolerance. Square the manifold vertically to the swing gauge arm by adding or removing shims between the manifold and the firewall. To fine-tune the manifold, adjust the brace rod. At the same time, check to be sure the grooves in the gauge arm align with the middle of the manifold walls. The distance from the firewall to the center line of the first manifold throat should be approximately 2 5/8 inches. If not, use shims at the mounting bolts to adjust. Recheck the manifold gap and retighten all bolts. When you are sure the manifold has been properly adjusted, apply perm elastic butyl rubber caulking compound to form a complete seal at the base of the manifold and firewall. If you're using a seed leveling bar, check its position with the swing gauge. Move the swing gauge to the 6 o'clock position and check the clearance of the seed leveling bar. It must be between 3/8 to 1/2 an inch. If necessary, loosen the leveling bar at the seed delivery chute and reposition it for proper tolerance. Now check the seed brush assembly. The width of a new brush is 1/4 of an inch. When brush width exceeds 5/8 of an inch, replacement is necessary because it will no longer accurately remove the excess seed from the pockets. This will also happen if the brush and bristles are damaged or if the rollers are worn or excessively loose. If this is the case, replace the entire assembly. Replace the brush assembly by loosening the hold-down bracket. To adjust the brush, loosen but do not remove the adjustment screws. Place the gauge directly over the brush and adjust it as required to remove extra seeds from the drum pockets during planting. Use the same seed you are planting with to obtain the proper gap. Retighten the screws after each adjustment is made. Finally, check the assist wheel with a swing gauge. The gauge should just touch the wheel. If necessary, raise or lower the wheel accordingly. Now, remove the swing gauge. Just as the seed drum pockets must align with the manifold openings, so must the seed release wheels align with the seed drum pockets. Also, the seed release wheel axle must be parallel with the seed drum holes to ensure uniform pressure on the drum. To adjust, loosen the seed wheel support bracket and move the entire assembly to properly align the release wheels with the seed pockets. Use shim washers if necessary. Retighten the bracket. To make sure you have a good seal over the seed holes, check the wheel support spring tension. It should require 10 to 12 pounds of force to pull the seed release wheels off the seed drum. Adjust the spring tension by bending the L-shaped spring bracket to obtain this pull. Seed drum pockets are sharp and can cause wear on the seed release wheels. Check the wheels for excessive wear and replace individual tires if necessary. This problem can be minimized by gently running a file across the seed pockets on the outside of the drum to dull the sharp edges a bit. Before reinstalling the seed drum, check the condition of the graphite lubricant on the firewall. Remove the old graphite if necessary. You may have to use a putty knife. After cleaning the seal wear surface, apply graphite lubricant with a spray can or a 2-inch wide paint roller. Graphite should be applied at the end of the day and allowed to dry overnight before installing the seed drum. The hydraulic system that runs the air blower must be kept in top working order if the blower is to provide correct pressure in the Cyclo Air system. If the proper pressure cannot be maintained, you may experience low seed population. Never operate the hydraulic system with the oil level low. The oil in the system is circulated through a cooler to keep the oil at a safe operating temperature. If the cooler louvers are plugged, the flow of air to the hopper and drum will be restricted, resulting in low air pressure. Check the cooler and clean it if necessary by directing compressed air against the louvers. Hydraulic pump filters may become dirty or plugged and should be changed at the beginning of every season. The procedure to follow for changing the filter depends on the type of pump on the planter. Refer to the operator's manual for specific instructions for each type of pump. This concludes pre-seasoned adjustments of the Cyclo seed drum system. The following are general pre-planting checks and maintenance procedures to be performed on the row unit mechanism. Check the opening discs for wear. If the overall diameter of the discs measures 13 1/2 inches or less, the discs should be replaced. If you plant with worn discs, you will experience premature wear of both seed shoe and furrow firming point. Seed trench depth and width will also be affected. With staggered discs, it is common for the leading or left disc to become grooved. Once this groove is worn 1/3 of the way into the disc, switch the position, left to right, of the two discs. This does not apply to the newer reversed bevel assembly. If both discs have grooves, they should be replaced. Make sure you keep the same number of shims behind each disc. To form a good seed trench, the furrow firming point must be sharp. The firming point is allowed 1/4 inch of wear before replacement is required. Check the point with a furrow firming point gauge. Replace the point if the tip does not appear in the opening of the gauge. Check the seed shoe assembly when you're servicing the furrow firming point. If it shows excessive wear, replace it. Check to see that seed tubes are fully seated against the seed manifold and fully inserted into the air diffusers. This must be done to eliminate any interior edges which might affect seed delivery. Check the seed tubes for wear after approximately 140 hours of use. Short, soft tubes under the cyclo module will wear more quickly than the hard tubes. Replace a tube when thin spots in the wall occur. Check tubes for thin spots near the manifold and at tight bends by pinching the tubes between your thumb and fingers. To replace a tube, remove the hose clamps from the tube at the manifold and the air diffuser. Carefully twist and pull to remove the tube. Slide a tape measure through the inside of the worn tube and measure its length. Cut the replacement tube to the same length. The manifold end of the new tube must be flared for a proper fit. Use a hot air gun to soften the manifold end of the new seed tube. Heat rigid tubes approximately 60 seconds and soft tubes approximately 30 to 40 seconds. Do not overheat tubes or they will buckle when you push them onto the flaring mandrel. Hold the flaring mandrel down with both feet while pushing the softened tube onto it. Allow the tube to cool on the mandrel so it won't shrink. After the tube is cooled, remove it from the mandrel, install the flared end onto the manifold and the non-flared end onto the air diffuser. Whenever you replace the drive chains, check the speed transmission sprockets for proper alignment, making sure spacers are on the correct side of the sprocket. Misalignment will cause jerky drive and affect overall performance. The drive chain tension is adjusted by idler sprockets attached to a chain tightener. If the chain tension is too tight or too loose, readjust it, making sure that the chain tightener idler sprockets are free to turn. Finally, check to see that the drive chains are properly lubricated and completely clear of all hydraulic hoses and seed tubes. This concludes pre-season adjustments to the row unit. The following standard maintenance procedures and preparations are normally performed just before taking to the field or while in the field itself. Use a cyclo drum gauge to determine the specific drum to use for the seed you're planting. The gauge pockets are the actual size of the drum pockets. Place the individual seeds in the pocket of the drum gauge to find the right drum for the seed you're going to plant. The seed should not fall through the hole in the gauge. The readings on the gauge will give you the drum ordering code numbers according to the seed population you desire. It's a good idea to do this when the customer first buys the seed. Then, if the right drum has to be ordered, it can be delivered in plenty of time for planting. In addition to the correct drum, you must also have the correct air pressure. Seed population accuracy can be affected by low air pressure within the cyclo system. If you have leaks, you won't be able to regulate the air pressure properly. Here's how you check for leaks. Empty all but about a gallon of seed from the drum. Now, pressurize the system at about 10 to 11 ounces if possible. Then rotate the drum until seeds are coming out of the seed tubes. The oil in the blower system must be at operating temperature for at least 10 minutes for the system to operate properly. Don't do any checking before this time. Using shaving lather, check for leaks along the hopper lid, seed chute, all hopper seams, seed drum seal, balance tube donut seal, and fan housing assembly seam. Low air pressure may also be caused by problems with the hydraulic system, which runs the blower. Make sure the oil is at proper operating temperature, or the blower won't operate efficiently. Proper temperature is about 100 degrees Fahrenheit above the ambient temperature. Check the level of oil in the reservoir. If low, add Case IH number 1 30-weight engine oil. Check the oil filter and cooler and change or clean them if necessary. Then check for kinked hydraulic hoses and make sure all hydraulic connections are tight. Once you're sure you have adequate air pressure, fill the seed hopper. For the best planting rates, the seed level in the drum should be between 2 to 3 inches when the drum is rotating. Too high a seed level can result in excessive loads on the drum drive and reduction in pocket fill. If the seed level is consistently high, lower the seed chute extension. Recheck the seed brush operation. If the brush is okay, check the speed of the seed drum. Seed drum speed is determined by the ground drive wheel. Therefore, the drum speed is determined by ground speed. This means that the condition of the seed bed and the inflation of the tire will affect the speed of drum rotation and seed population, because the drive wheel can slip if seed bed conditions are excessively soft or if the drive wheel is underinflated. Make sure the drive wheel or wheels are inflated to 40 pounds per square inch. All seed population charts are based on a 95-inch rolling circumference on the drive wheel. However, the actual rolling circumference of the drive tire is 87 inches. Thus, all charts have a built-in average 8% slippage rate. If your wheel slippage is more than this 8% amount, seed population will be lower than specified in the chart. To calculate the amount of slippage, check the travel distance per revolution of the drive wheels on the planter. Place a rope around the cross-section of the drive wheel. In soil prepared for planting, pull the planter forward several revolutions at planting speed. Measure the distance between rope indentations. If the distance is more or less than 95 inches, refer to the seed population charts and adjust the speed transmission sprockets accordingly. Drum speed should never fall below 13 RPM or exceed 35 RPM, or the population will be adversely affected. The optimum drum speed range is 23 to 33 RPM. Correct sprocket size can be obtained by consulting the seed population charts. One of the most often overlooked adjustments when planting in soft soil is the height of the toolbar. If the toolbar is set at the correct height, parallel links will be parallel to the ground in the planting position. Check the height of the toolbar when the planter is fully lowered and level front to rear. The toolbar should be 20 inches above the ground as measured from the bottom of the planter toolbar to the impression left by the row unit gauge wheel. This measurement ensures the optimum row unit free movement 5 inches up and 5 inches down, independent of the toolbar. Consult individual operators' manuals for specific instructions on setting toolbar height. Seed depth adjustments for varying ground conditions can be made in the field with 3 downspring pressure settings that assist the disc openers in penetrating any soil condition. To change the down pressure, adjust the 2 spring bolts. Move the spring mounting bracket to another set of holes in the top parallel link. These settings provide 60, 130, or 215 pounds of down pressure. It is common for customers to run excessive amounts of down pressure when it is not needed. This results in more frequent replacement and maintenance of opener discs, bearings, shoes, firming points, and closing discs. Do not use a higher pressure setting than that necessary to maintain proper depth. If you are experiencing bulldozing when planting in loose or sandy soil, a single up-pressure setting is available to reduce unit weight. Up pressure is obtained by moving the pressure spring top bracket to the far forward hole and relocating the spring bottom to the rear hole. This setting provides 80 pounds of up pressure. To assure proper germination and even emergence, seed must always be placed at a uniform depth in moist soil. If you are experiencing irregular seed depth, a furrowing disc attachment is available which may be mounted in front of the row unit. This attachment will clear away some of the dry, loose soil and permit the firming point to create a uniformly deep seed trench in the moisture soil underneath. This concludes infield preparations. After the planting season, store the planter indoors to protect it from the weather. If this isn't possible, place boards under the jack, the carrying wheels, and the double disc openers to prevent the planter from sinking into the ground. Next, remove all seed from the seed hopper, seed chute, and seed drum. Remove the hydraulic pump from the tractor. Coat the quick coupler with grease on the internal spline and release pin. Store the pump on the planter hitch in the socket provided for it. Clean the planter thoroughly and inspect it for worn or broken parts. Replacement of needed parts now will avoid delay at the next planting season. If the planter is equipped with a granular chemical attachment, clean the inside of the hoppers and feed mechanism thoroughly. If the row markers are to be left in place for storage, be sure to lock them in upright position with marker transport locker pins. Move the seed release wheels into storage position. Apply a light coating of grease to all exposed hydraulic cylinder rods. Remove the seed drum and place graphite lubricant on the drum sealing surface of the firewall. Place the large retaining disc on the seed drum shaft. Then replace the drum and loosely install the knob. This will prevent the drum seal from contacting the firewall. Failure to follow this procedure may cause the drum seal to become deformed over the winter. Remove all drive chains and store them in a container of oil. This is a must if you intend to use them next season. Cover the seed drum with a protective cover held firmly in place. We've covered a lot of information, so be sure to support this program with the detailed information found in your service and operator's manuals. We hope these technical tips will make it easier for you to provide your customers with the expert service they've come to expect from Case International.